Hello, my name is Travis Marcella. I'm currently 16, with dark brown hair, and I'm pretty skinny. I have green eyes and I'm in 10th grade. Today is March 4th, 2023, and I never expected to be making entries of my life since it is pretty average. But something strange has been happening recently. I'll try to explain what's happening as best as I can. I was riding my bicycle one evening, my backpack barely hanging onto my shoulders as I went as fast as I could to get home in the pouring rain. I eventually reached my father's cabin, and I quickly scrambled inside. "Dad!" I called out. There was no answer, and to my dismay, my father was sleeping on the couch. I shook him until he woke up. Today was my birthday, and I was not going to allow him to sleep through it. "Travis, what are you doing?" he said, confused. "Dad, it's my birthday, come on," I said, quickly running to the kitchen and grabbing some candles. I then ran to my backpack and took out a slightly crushed cake. I set it on the table and started placing the candles on the top. 14, 15, 16, I shouted. "Dad, you got all the candles!" I shouted excitedly. My father grumbled as he took out his lighter and set the candles ablaze. I watched intently as flames flickered ever so slightly. We sang the birthday song. Well, I sang it and he hummed along, and I blew out my candles. I, 16 years of age, obviously wished for a girlfriend. We got some snacks together and watched some TV in the living room. A couple hours later, my father was asleep again, and I was watching some 1990s horror films. I glanced out the window, and to my shock, I saw a shadow in the corner of my eye. I screamed and shook my dad. He woke up, and I told him what happened. He immediately grabbed his shotgun and slammed open the front door. He ran off into the night and left me alone for what felt like hours. Eventually, he came back and told me he had some new house rules in a serious tone. At first, I was confused, but then he pulled out a piece of paper and gave it to me. There were only 5 rules, but they were odd nonetheless. Rule number 1. Do not go outside at night. Rule number 2. If you see anything strange, tell me. Rule number 3. Lock the front door before midnight. Rule number 4. Do not respond to any odd sounds, no matter how human they seem. Rule number 5. If you ever encounter any... The rest of the rule was scratched out. I read these rules more than 5 times, trying to understand these rules clearly, but to no avail. "Dad, these rules, don't they seem a bit odd?" I asked. "No, these are the rules you must follow," he said the last part loudly. I was confused, but I dismissed the weird situation and followed the rules. The next couple of days at school were pretty normal, but whenever I was at home, I kept seeing these shadows in the corner of my eye. It really freaks me out, but my father says it's my imagination playing tricks on me. I think he is keeping something from me. The next day, I was at school when Daniel Parker bumped into me, thrusting all of my books and school supplies on the floor. I rushed to pick them up, while he laughed and walked away. I gritted my teeth and held back my rage. Was there no teachers to deal with this idiot? I thought. I heard later on that day that there was a test coming up that was giving the highest scorer $500. The best part is that it's only for kids who had a C+ or below. I was always a C+ student, so I had the advantage. The test was in 3 days, and we were all given study notes. I went to get on my bike to ride home that day to find that someone had graffitied all over my bike, along with my tyres being stolen. I gritted my teeth and I accidentally bit my cheek. Cursing myself, I grabbed my bike and dragged it home. I walked home and I saw another shadow in the corner of my eye, running off into the backyard. I ran after it. I watched as it ran deep into the forest that surrounded the cabin that my father and I lived in. I went to run after it, but I felt something grab my shoulder. I turned around to see my father. He looked extremely pale and held his shotgun in his hand, torch hanging off the tip. "Dad, did you see it?" I said hysterically. almost questioning my sanity.
"What are you talking about?"
He lied.
"I saw a deer,"
he stated, and began to chase after the shadow. I watched in shock as my father chased after the shadow, with no fear in his eyes. Maybe he did see a deer and I'm just going insane. I lay awake that night, thinking about what was happening. I could almost hear the shadows laughing at me, trying to figure out if they were real or not. I took out my phone and scrolled through my contacts. Still empty. What was I even expecting? I watched some more cartoons. Old cartoons always calmed me down, even as a baby. They just looked cool to me, I guess. I got a decent night of rest, despite the circumstances. I woke up and realised I had not studied at all, and I only had 2 days until the test. I had my mind on studying all day, but all my hope for studying was shattered when Daniel Parker bumped into me again. Nothing happened, and I sighed with relief and realised in horror that my study notes were missing. I turned back to see him smiling as he ripped my notes to shreds and threw them out. I wanted to punch him so badly. I wanted him to hurt so badly, but I gritted my teeth and sighed in defeat. I walked home as my bike was still not fixed. My father promised to get me some new tyres today, but I doubted he would keep his word. To my surprise, I walked home to see him wide awake, sober, and new tyres in the corner of the room. He even helped me assemble them onto my bike. I felt something was off though. Usually my father was drunk or sleeping, but he seemed much more alert and always had his shotgun near. I saw his trigger finger tensing up randomly. I thanked my dad for the tyres and immediately went to my room. Something was off with my dad, and I expected him to be drunk, but I watched as he just kept staring out the windows as if something was playing peekaboo. I considered he might be seeing the shadows too, but that doesn't explain why. My thoughts were interrupted by a knocking on the window. I turned to see the pitch-black night, but something was a bit off. I squinted, and I swear I could make out 8 eyes staring back. I screamed as I immediately realised that, whatever it was trying to open the window. I quickly ran to the window and locked it before it got inside. I watched as it scraped its spider-like limbs across the window like daggers. I backed away as the window started to crack. I called out to my father, but then I heard a shot go off. These things, they were getting into the house. I quickly ran out of the room to see my father struggling to fend off a giant spider that broke through a nearby window. I ran to my father's aid, and he pointed his finger towards his shotgun on the table nearby. I ran to it but stopped about a foot away before another spider fell from the ceiling, almost onto me. I stood in complete shock as it scurried closer. It was around 4 feet in size and was as wide as a table behind it. It lunged at me and I ducked as it flew over my head. It landed right behind me and I quickly made a grab for the shotgun. I was able to grab the shotgun as the spider charged, but I was faster. I shot the spider right in its face and quickly finished off the other spider that my father was fighting. I thought it was over when I heard my bedroom window shatter. My blood ran cold as a spider emerged from my room and was charging straight towards me. The shotgun my father owned only had 2 bullets at a time, and now it looked like I was about to be trampled when right as it was about to ram into me, a large fire axe slammed into its body and crushed its head. I looked at my father, but all I saw was cold, distant eyes. He brought me to my bedroom after boarding up my window and told me to tell nobody about this. I can hear him right now, fixing up the damage from the spiders. I have to tell someone about this, and that's why I'm posting here. I'm unsure what to make of what's happening, but I'll keep in touch. I promise.